So you can check my presentation in real time in the link as well, and yeah, of course I will explain and talk myself to
Sure.
share what I did. So can I start?
Yes, please.
Okay, so yeah, this is the situation. Okay, this is AWS DMS, love it or hate it by Sinubang. I'm really happy to see you and have you talk in the Boston folks. I'm working for a Kellogg North America based on Boston, and I'm a software engineer. Due to the COVID-19, I'm in my home country, South Korea. I work remotely. Most of the time, I've been in charge of dealing with web service for molecules and OLED devices. I can guess that for those of you who are not familiar with this industry, you don't need to worry about that. I don't know it either. So I don't know about molecules and OLED devices so much, but I can do by collaborating with the chemical scientists and material scientists. And these are my electricities. I mean, I've been in my whole career, I've been dealing with Python web applications and PostgreSQL, and of course, I'm a big fan of AWS. So let me briefly tell you about my working stuff. The web service is called Kinetic, and let me simplify this. In summarized, this is a automated search engine for material scientists. I mean, the in-house scientists. In Japan, there are a lot of real scientists, literally scientists in Japan, Fukuoka, who research their chemistry things and material things. After they done their researchment, they upload the data on our web service platform called Kinetic, and there are some sold up ML things and like very calculation things done by computer engine. That's how the Kinetic, our web service, is working. And I'm a software engineer to deal with this platform. So why don't we get it started? So I think you may ask me this question: why did I use DMS? Long story short, one day PSPL instance stopped. You know, can you believe in it? Just imagine a situations that without any reasons, without exact reasons, your PostgreSQL instance stopped. You know, this is horrible. This is terrible. That's what I felt at the moment. The reason was the storage size of database has reached out to the limit. So no, but me and all of the team members, I mean, all of the software engineers on my team couldn't believe in it. We used to set an alarm for the database side, storage side utilization alarm, which gives on Slack alarm or email alarm for warning, hey dude, your database storage side is dangerous, so you gotta care about it. But we couldn't get any kind of alarm, but immediately DB stopped. So we found out that the reason is coming from Elasticsearch. You know, it's just so weird. The PostgreSQL instance stopped. The reason was related to Elasticsearch. So we should have found out that what is the relation? What is the relation between PostgreSQL and Elasticsearch on our service? And the problem was, the problem happened between synchronize the data between the database instance and Elasticsearch instance. Every RDBMS service has their own redo log system, which is used for recovery whenever a DBMS instance stopped and have an error. They leave the redo logs and they try to cover all the data changed, and that's how a DBMS engine recovers their some errors. So whenever your data changed, redo logs capture the changes and stacked in the logs. For example, if you update your data, redo log stacked it. And if you change your data, redo log stacks it. If you delete your data, redo log stacks it. And we've chosen redo logs as a synchronization tool for Elasticsearch. I mean, we needed to support a faster search feature for our scientists. So at that moment, we tried to copy the origin data on RDBMS PostgreSQL to our search engine storage Elasticsearch. So whenever read logs stacked, there is a consumer consuming the read logs and convert it to Elasticsearch data type. And as you can see, one day, consumer stopped and log stacked infinitely. Yeah, this is the visualization. There was a consumer read log consumer which is converting the RDBMS data type, the Elasticsearch data type, and the consumer stopped, unfortunately. So anyhow, we had to go ahead. I mean, yeah, as you can imagine, the service stopped. But anyway, we had to deal with it and we had to resolve it if you are a software engineer. So we immediately increased the storage size. So we needed to remove the limit of the storage size at the moment. So we immediately increased storage size to recover our web service status. But there was a side effect of that. We couldn't decrease it. We increased the storage size, but we could not get it back. We didn't know that we did not know that it is unable, but however, we found out a docs talking about you cannot decrease your storage size once you increased it. So likewise, like this doc says, it says to decrease the storage size of a DB instance, please create a new DB instance, right? We were like, oh my God, what should I do? What can we do? And maybe most of you think about replication and promotion. Hey, you can replicate a new instance and just promote it to the master node. And unfortunately, it was impossible as well. The AWS official docs is saying that this is impossible. So we were beginning to plan a project called DB migration, and we started to count what can be the possible benefits of the project. And first of all, we wanted to reduce the increase size. And following that, we were thinking like, oh, maybe we can upgrade version to version 13. And since we were using the features that we were using were not that special on PostgreSQL, we were just using very basic features like index and just select, update, like okay, what can I say? I mean, there's sort of things that basic features that PostgreSQL supports. So maybe we thought like, even though we move our CPU chip to Graviton, maybe it doesn't matter. So we formulated a hypothesis and we just went ahead. And this is AWS DMS, and I will skip the introduction of this service, but long story short, it will help you move your database instance, whatever it comes from, whatever this comes to, whatever your source data type was whatever your target instance type is, it generally supports the database migration. So let me tell you about the conclusion we got first. It was successful and we got everything that we expected as benefits. You may think like, oh, why do you tell me the conclusion first? Because today I'm going to speak about some warning things that if you want to use DMS seriously, there are some careful things that you need to know if you really are into DMS. So there were some sort of impediments. So, and there are three of things. And so the first one was how DMS deals with PostgreSQL data types. And second one was size of each blocks. And third one is index and concentrate and sequence. Those are so critical and important. So there was a legacy data. I mean, I guess most of you have your own legacy data, your database instance. No matter how you meant to be or didn't mean to, legacy always exists. And our legacy data was like JSON data that has the size of over than 20 megabytes. I couldn't believe it, but it was what it was. And we should have checked it, but unfortunately, we checked it after the migration, after the error occurred. And DMS data type is just not fully same with the Postgre data types. You should understand that DMS is for general purpose, not only for specialized for PostgreSQL. It's not specialized for MySQL. It supports generally to convert your database instance type. So if you check this out, there is a blue box that your PostgreSQL JSON types will be converted into a NC loop on DMS. This is interesting. Honestly, it was not interesting when I in the trouble. Anyway, LOB, what is this? LOB, NC loop, LOB, what can be is? It's just a anonym for large object. I was thinking that large object is not something that I need to care about, but I realized that AWS official channel was emphasizing how DMS how LOB is important for you, but I couldn't see that. LOB data is very important if you are considering to use DMS. So first error that I got was some JSON data was truncated. Really? Can you see the example line? I mean, the blue one and red one. It was a example. The origin object was very valid and very so simple dictionary, but we found out that it was truncated, and DB log say this is invalid, so you cannot put your data into the log. Hey, this is the data fully validated, and we were using it. We were using it on our web service. How dare you can say this is invalid? It was what it was. There was a option limits the size of the JSON data. So I found out that there's a field option max slope size. That was why my precious JSON data was truncated. So we set up the max slope size as big as possible so that we could fix it. But however, there was another side effect of big max slope size option. I mean, I told you I set it like 32 kilobytes, which is kind of big, you know, and somehow we made it as 100 megabyte just in case. And there is an error message. Your Postgres client was shut down unexpectedly. At that time, we didn't have any kind of PostgreSQL client. Just imagine the situation that you were creating a new instance. There's no instance and there's no client. I mean, because the data recovery was in the middle, so we couldn't put any client up to the server. So I was thinking that probably the Postgres client is in the DMS process. That's not mine. So, okay, so let me debug it. And the reason we got found was, as I mentioned, the max slope size was 100 megabytes, which is very big, the maximum size of it. However, there were some, at the same time, there were some data was small, like 1 kilobyte. So I adjusted it to 1 kilobyte again, and it worked. I mean, I'm still guessing that PSQL client was waiting for more buffer because the max slope size was 100 megabytes, but finally stopped because it was too small. Can you like this image? There is a man who is trying to wear a big shoes that doesn't fit to him. I think it was the problem. So final solution was we organized the 3 of DMS tasks by log size. We organized it by 3, and the first one is small size data. The second one is medium size data, and third one is huge size data. So we categorize all the tables into 3 ones, and it was like divided by each of maximum block size. Done? No. I was I would have very happy if it was done. But even though we tried everything and covered everything, but there was a still huge problem on web service. A web service does not respond. API, all of the API never respond. Well, I was like this. So, and we found out that CPU utilization rate was up to 90%, which is abnormal. This is insane, and this is ridiculous. And even found out that we couldn't insert any row into table. like we just migrate a database, but we could insert any data. This is database, but we couldn't put a data. I was going crazy honestly. And as you can see, there are so many people who have very similar question like this, like me. Hey, DMS doesn't respond. Like DMS, after DMS, I'm very struggle with the response time, and this never respond. And the main reason we got found was here. Here's the thing. This is DMS. So D means data. So it says it supports migration of data, but it doesn't support known data like index and foreign key, or which one is primary key, or like sequences. It was not, those were not the things that DMS supports. So we had to deal with manually. That's why our web service didn't respond. So as I mentioned, I needed to deal with index, concentrated, and sequence, which are inevitable to control in web services. So what is sequence? You may know about auto increment on database. Whenever you set a primary key as a number type, integer type, you can check each of them is incrementally goes up and issues a new primary key, which is based on the last max number you permit. So that is serial in PostgreSQL. It's called a serial object. And serial is consisting of two things. First one is ID, I mean integer field that you use to set. And the integer field is pointing a sequence object, then what was the last maximum number that you permit, and sequence was remembering that. So by pointing the sequence object, and a table can get a new primary key, which is not duplicated with the last permitted one. So with sequence, if you insert a data with null, it works. But without sequence, if you insert in the data with null, it doesn't work. The desired table solution. But we found out that there is no unified solution we can get. I mean, every team has their own context, and every error case is their own context. So we found out that there is no unified solution that magically works. So we realized we gotta do it by ourselves. And what features that a solution must support was migrating index, concentrate, and sequence. So I made a open source project to resolve this one by executing these scripts on my repository. You can migrate your index and concentrate and sequences perfectly. I had to Google and search for many materials, and by done that, I could have made that. And by using this one, our team could have fixed our better. I mean, our team could have migrated the known data thing that doesn't support it by DMS. So we almost got to the final one, and caution is always migrate data first. Even though you got this kind of open source project that support you, helps you to migrate known data things, you have to migrate data first, because if index things exist first, then your migrate speed will be amazingly slow, because index has B-tree algorithm and B-tree structure, additional structure from the real table. So whenever you put a data, index will be organized. So the insertion speed is absolutely slow. So let me get it summarized. Before migration, before you use DMS, be careful when you have JSON or blob types of columns on your table. This is very critical. This is important. And check out available data types and compatibility on AWS official docs. AWS official docs is very, very kind and nice. So they try to tell you everything that you gotta careful, but most of cases we don't read it, right? Of course we read it, but sometimes we are so fat, we are too busy, and we used to skip it. But if you check this presentation, please don't skip that. This is very important. And check and find one of the final one is check out the size of JSON blob column. And after migration, you need to migrate your non-data things such as index and concentrated sequences. If your concentrate does not migrate it, then your data can be duplicated. For instance, just in the case of your unique constraint is removed, and if you don't have primary key index, then your filtering, search the where clause will be absolutely slow. And if you don't have sequence, then you can't insert any kind of row. So you don't need to check my solution, but what I can assure you is you need to find a way how to deal with migrate index concentrate sequence. Okay. Thank you. And this is over. Okay, so I'll be happy if you ask me something.
Can you, thank you so much, especially under such difficult circumstances. And I have a clue what happened earlier. I'll share that in just a little bit. But I was wondering about the performance of DMS. I mean, we all think we have big data, but if I've got 500 million rows, that's getting to be big. What just order of magnitude, how long does DMS take? And I know there's a million variables, but order of magnitude.
Okay, that's a good question. And fortunately, you can choose the data instance size of DMS tags, so you can control the performance of it. And I got a small instance, as small as one, because I was thinking that at the moment, probably this doesn't need to be fast, because once migration has completed, then all I have to do is just change the data URL in my web service. So I was thinking that this doesn't need to be fast. For our case, our data it's not that big. It has 1 terabyte, and it took 5 hours. But it was just a small instance. Then the important thing that I think about is downtime was very, very small. I mean, though it took 5 hours, but it was happened in the backend, and it was not affecting the service which is up. So yeah, it took 5 hours, but if I go back to the moment, probably I will spec up. I will spec up the DMS task, and it will be take more or less time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Gentlemen, if I
Nobody.
could
Okay.
interrupt,
Thank you.
let me see if I think I'm still on mute.
No, we hear you.
Okay, great. I worked with the data migration service for quite some time, back when it was command line. So I have a few years of experience with this tool. One of the essentially when you do conversions, you have 3 different components, and one of the gentleman who did this was missing one of the components, which is why he ran into so many errors. There's something called the schema conversion tool. And the schema conversion tool actually takes all of the SQL from your source and generates all of the SQL to apply to your target. The schema conversion tool is going through numerous iterations, and I actually have it on my screen and I'm doing this right now. It's actually getting a little better. But that with regard to the sequences, procedures, views, materialized views, all the other components, the SCT schema conversion tool fills in that middle gap. It doesn't require that you generate your own packages to write your own DDL for any additional components. So that it seems, again, that was the one missing component. And while I applaud you for doing this on GitHub, that was fantastic. You don't have to do that.
Okay, I gotcha.
The other thing that you can do is I've loaded petabytes of data, hundreds of millions of rows from MySQL to Postgres and Oracle, et cetera. One of the things that I find is, in order to really expedite the process, I do take the largest, the replication instance. I take the largest replication instance available, and if you read in the documentation, it actually tells you how to set up numerous parallel instances. So you can distribute your data and your loading across partitions. And again, that is all available in the docs. Your mileage may vary. This is one of the things where if you're going from Oracle, there's different parameters that you need in the replication, since Postgres, again, has its own separate. So again, you'll have to find the specific tuning guidelines that are available in the docs. The other thing that I can't emphasize highly enough, if you want this to move quickly, the schema conversion tool saves all of the SQL, all the DDL that you're going to copy from and to. What I do is I simply remove all of the indexes and constraints, stream the data in. Once that is done, then create the constraints and indexes. At that point, you can stop the replication process and then do the catch-up, so that your source and your destination are then synchronized. It'll read your redo logs, your intent logs, your whatever platform you're using. All that information can be caught up after time. So I think I moved 200 gigabyte database in just a handful of hours. And again, that may have taken a long time for the initial load, but once I was able to tell the database migration task to do just the catch-up version, it ends up being pretty quick. I'm pulling up the data migration service on my screen now, and the task. So what I've done is I've set up distinct tasks so that it just does the migration of ongoing data, not of the initial load. So again, breaking that up into multiple components will speed that up for you.
Yeah, I think he got the point.
I'm genuinely sorry. I didn't mean to take over for a second time the Zoom presentation.
No, never mind.
Right. And while people are thinking of more questions, I have a theory about how we got breached, in that the way we set things up are that the Zoom link is only available to people who register for the meetup. Now, in tonight's case, we had a number of other meetups where their members wanted to attend. And I'm not exactly sure, but I suspect what happened is that someone from their group, from one of the other groups, registered for our meeting, got the Zoom link, and then shared it with their group, totally innocuously. But by doing so, they exposed the link to anybody who might be scraping Meetup for Zoom links. That's just a theory, but with my security hat on, that makes sense. Which is why I didn't reshare the link directly when we had that issue.
Okay.
But anyway, but so two Zoom bombs in 2.5 years. I guess that's not too terrible. But geez.
Yeah.
Anyway, other questions people might have.
A couple of tips, if I can just add to, for individuals who are looking forward to expedite their process. Ultimately, what the replication instance is it's an inline database. I think it's Berkeley DB still. At least that's what it was initially. So literally, that replication instance is just a Berkeley DB. It takes all of your data. The bigger you scale up that rep instance, that version of the database is also larger. And that's where you get the client errors. So the message that you mentioned, I took some notes. You said that you got a client error. That client error is from the replication instance trying to connect to either source or target. And when you set up the memory parameters to be too large, that tiny little inline database is where you got that error. With regard to CLOBs, large objects, the one thing that I tend to do is, for all of my migrations, I always turn on the largest lob value, and I think the default is 64 kilobits. I bump that up to 128, and that tends to work out very well for me. The only other thing that I have is try to keep your schema conversion tool up to date. This is wonderful. Amazon does not provide a MacBook version of this because of some change, nor do they provide an Amazon Linux version of it. So I have to spin up a Windows box in order for me to use the schema conversion tool, which is absurd. But again, I've emailed technical project managers asking for to be on the beta of the SCT, and I haven't heard back.
Okay. Well, thank you, and thank you. This actually, I'm gonna stop there. Oh, is there more questions? Okay, I'm gonna.
Sorry for that, Ryan. So I heard like there are two constraints. One is like your blob. The another one type is like one. I don't get the other type. So is there anyone migrated from AS400, that DB2 database, to any of this AWS environment? Because I have an instance saying like my DB2 is AS400, and I have a column. It's a text column. It's a formatted text. You know about the format text, bullet points and stars, everything they can capture it. And then they want to move it to the any decent database like Oracle or SQL or Postgres, whatever it may be. But the problem, what I'm getting is that particular text column, I could not able to migrate. The format, they are writing the prescription information. It's like a healthcare service I'm working on, and the problem is like they write something. Okay, the patient came today and they did the process, and then they write something on the comment on it. It's like a formatted text. So when I try to migrate this particular column, I could not able to migrate the all content of this particular value from the AS400 to the MySQL. Is there any recommendation?
Honestly, due to my lack of English and audio was unstable, I don't think I can answer you so correctly. So, Robert, did you hear to what he said? Would you mind answering this if you don't mind?
Yeah, two things. When you use when you use a schema conversion tool, the schema conversion tool will make a best guess as to what the destination DDL should look like. So verify that when you create the target component, whatever that column definition is, that it can store all your data. You're going from I think you're going from DB2 to something else. I didn't catch that, but create the target table with the appropriate DDL, and then when you do the migration, I have it on my screen. Do the include lob. Do the full lob mode when you set up the task, and again the maximum lob size. This is where you're going to have to do some work on your part to find out what your largest column is, and then create set that value there. This is one of those components where I would go back to your designers or your development team and ask them, why are they using this database for a feature that it seems like you're using the wrong case in this specific scenario. I'd look for some other option.
Okay. So there's one more question to you, actually, particularly. So you were saying that the DMS migration, so there's one-time migration, there is a continuous migration. So I'm giving a scenario saying that, okay, I'm getting a database, it's a daily backup they provide, assume like a SQL Server legacy database, and we want to migrate that data because to a MySQL or maybe Aurora. So I used to get a backup daily. We were not able to set up a DMS on their servers for some regulatory reasons. So the only thing what we get is like a backup of the daily backup. So we know, like we have been experiencing saying that, okay, so one-time process at the initial setup, we can do the initial DMS and one-time load. And for the continuous load, what could be the approach that I need to take? Because I'm getting the daily backup and I want to load only the differential.
My understanding, DMS does not support your scenario.
Yeah. Yeah, that was like
it just
put me in a situation like, okay, so what I need to do is I need to find the differences manually and then push the changes like a CDC process to be done on top of another one more SQL server to find the differences and then move from that database to the MySQL.
I mean, unless you can apply logs, right? Depends on your style of backup and what you get. And if you're able to keep applying logs, you could potentially keep applying logs to a clone. And I've been down some painful roads there, but it's with Oracle, but it's doable for Oracle. I'm not sure in SQL Server.
Yeah, the SQL is like quite not able to support the log files to be stored on. So we have to do something manual. All right, that's all I have. Thanks, Brian. Thanks all.
Matt Heaven? Due to my lack of English, I could not understand your question perfectly, but if you don't mind, I can answer you by I can't listen some faster English, but I can read it. So if you really need some help or some extra needs, then you can email me. So
definitely.
You got my email on the chat, and you can send me some questions and I can help you.
Okay. All right.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I'd like to do our raffle, and our raffle is basically, I don't even have it here. Our raffle is one of our Boston AWS user group mugs, which unfortunately I still can only ship in the US.
Okay.
So the way we do this, we ask a trivia question, and first person to answer it in the chat wins, and I'll send it to you. But like I said, unfortunately, I can't send them outside the US.
No, never mind.
So with that in mind, and I usually do sci-fi trivia. So tonight, I'm leaping over to Farscape, but I'll take different answers. Can anyone tell me either the name of the main ship in Farscape or any of the bad guys? and put it in the meeting chat.
What was the question again, please?
In the show Farscape, yes. Arjit wins, yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
agree me.
yeah. Yes, yes. Yes, Moya, one of my, and just for record, I would have also accepted for bad guys, Scorpius, Scarens, yeah. Anyway, and for Farscape fans, I will say, once upon a time, my son asked me a question, having watched Farscape and Doctor Who, and he said, "Dad, who's cooler, Aaron from Farscape or Clara from Doctor Who?" And I said, "That's a pretty profound question." But my dad answer was, "Who do you think is cooler?" And he said, with no disrespect to Aaron, he said Clara, because I think she's smarter. And I'm like, what? Okay, that is a great answer. But anyway, so Arjit, if you could, if I'm saying that right, if you can send your postal address to me at and I'll put it here at briantarbox@gmail. Yeah, if you can send me your postal address there, thanks. Yeah, I'll make sure you get a mug. And Eric, you came in. Eric, you came in so close. Send me your address. I'll get you a mug too.
Woo. All right, thank you.
What the heck? They are lovely mugs. And I will say, in a shameless promotion, I also have this mug that I made at the beginning of the pandemic, and I kept hoping it would be out of date. It's you can't read it. It's waiting for the P in PTSD. And we kept thinking, when is it going to be over, and when can we start recovering? And I don't know. It's almost
like a thing in Spaceballs. Like, when will then be now? Soon.
Oh my God.
Somewhere in that point, it'll come. I don't know when, but
so thank you, everyone. Thanks for hanging in there as we dealt with the situation. I'm hoping in 2 weeks to have our speaker from Ukraine. If you come to Reinforce, I'll try to have stickers for everyone, and I might have a few of the mugs. Reinforce you soon. So, and Sarah, let me stop recording. Let me stop. Well, actually, no, I'll just end the meeting. So, thank you all. Have a good night.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
Before get it finished, can I add something? So
yeah,
I have my GitHub link on the chat. So if you don't mind, if any of you are interested in just networking by code, and you can add me on GitHub.
Nice.
That's the thing.
Excellent. All right. Good night, all.
Good night, all. Bye bye.
Good night, everybody.
Have a
Cheers.
good night and day. Bye bye.